Hello, and welcome back to the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. Today, we are continuing our series focused on women in leadership roles and are really excited to be joined by Rochelle Gapere. Rochelle is an attorney, happiness coach, and entrepreneur. Her Amazon best-selling book, One Happy Thought at a Time, 30 Days to a Happier You, solidifies her commitment to spreading happiness through science-based methodologies and empowering individuals to lead more fulfilling lives. She has a mantra of being an attorney by trade and happiness coach by heart. Rochelle holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and is a Juris Doctorate from the University of Miami School of Law. Among that, she is also recognized as one of the top 100 female empowerment speakers worldwide by Engage LLC. And she continues to inspire audiences with her practical techniques for embracing a joyful existence at every level. Rochelle, welcome. We are honored to have you on the podcast with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Cece and Rachel. I am thrilled to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you with a list of accomplishments like that. Yeah, I feel a little bit like I have imposter syndrome.
No.
Right?
No, but I'm fascinated by your background. It's super cool, and you know how you got into being, you know, what you're doing now, and your book as well. So yeah, looking forward to this chat today.
For sure,
Thank
for sure. Okay, so I do have to preface this conversation by just sharing a little bit about how I met Rochelle. So we worked together when she was brought in by Macy's to be a speaker for a 2-week virtual career expo. And there were a lot of speakers in those 2 weeks that we hosted, but honestly, she truly stood out and really impressed me. And since then, I've invited her several times to deliver commencement speeches at graduation celebrations for a leadership program that I manage at work. And so we've stayed in touch. And I mean, quite honestly, Rachel, I deeply respect and admire you. Your energy and positivity is truly infectious. I really talk about you a lot to people. So I'm really
thank you.
happy. So with that, I really just want to dive into having our listeners get to know you a little bit better. So would you mind sharing with us a bit about your background and your career journey?
So first, I want to say, Rachel, no need to have imposter syndrome, because let me tell you, it has been a journey. Even sometimes I'll hear my bio and I'm in awe that that's me. And so to be fair, I was the girl who always knew she wanted to be an attorney. At 3, if you had asked me, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an attorney. I was laser focused. I went through undergrad, did the LSAT. I graduated in 3.5 years. I went to law school. And that first semester, as I was sitting in class, I thought, this is not my purpose at all.
No.
And so you can imagine, knowing that that's all I'd wanted in my whole life.
Yeah.
I was stuck, because I always had a 3-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. And so I did what any West Indian, Jamaican girl would do. I started something I had to finish. So I graduated from law school, started working in family court, enjoyed that. Serendipitously, I ended up getting a job in healthcare law. And as I was doing it, I knew I was good at doing this stuff, but it wasn't my passion. I wasn't waking up every day feeling like, okay, this is what I was called to do. So I'd always had a gnawing sense of there has to be more. 2013, I did a leadership fellowship called Miami Fellows. And there was a fellow, it was 13 of us, and there was a fellow in there who is the co-founder of the Miami Marathon, and he's the chief running officer. And he would show up at the fellowship all the time looking bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, full of purpose. And I said, well, if Frankie could find his X factor, I absolutely need to find mine. And it's interesting because life kept going on. I didn't find it for like 3 more years. And I remember just really sinking into the feeling like, why am I here? Why was I born? What is my purpose? There has to be more, has to be more. The thing about asking that question is that you have to surrender to the answer. And little did I know, my answer would come in the form of life pretty much falling apart, in the sense of everything I'd planned literally fell crashing down. Imagine me, who had always had a plan. I was really taken aback, and I had to remove my ego from it and decide, okay, well, you had this life plan. Clearly it's not working and you've asked for more. And so in the surrender and having the more, you're going to have to get still and dig deep. And so for me, it came in the end of a relationship to somebody who I thought I was going to marry. And I was devastated. But I remember thinking, well, this discomfort that I'm feeling right now, I am going to learn every single lesson in this season. So one, I didn't have to repeat the lessons again. And two, I'd ask for more clarity of purpose. And so when you ask for clarity of purpose, you can't tell the universe or God or source how they're going to deliver the lessons and the answers to you. In that season, I decided, okay, well, I am going to start learning more, which is my baseline for every season of life. What can I learn? I started reading voraciously about purpose, about, passion, how to enliven and enlighten yourself. And so it took me on a journey. I was a psychology major in college. And at that time, there was no school of positive psychology. 15 years later, there was. And so as I read what the School of Positive Psychology was, I was so intrigued. It was about human flourishing, living your best life. And I said, bingo, that sounds like something I would want to learn more about. And so, yes, I went off on a sabbatical, started studying positive psychology, and then here we are. I could stop right there because I know you may have some feedback, but that was the impetus. It was rejection. It was failure that led me to live my life's purpose. And so I look back now and I remember how scared I was in that season because everything like I knew it was no longer going to be. But I would go through that whole experience again to bring me right to this space. And so, yeah, that's the journey so far.
That's so fascinating, isn't it? Like you had a very clear plan, and then you kind of got there, went, no, this isn't it, which is what happens to a lot of people. And then you almost had to deconstruct everything, like everything had to fall down, have it like a tower moment, as we say, and then go, okay, what is it? Where do I get that clarity? And I don't know about you, like I tap into my intuition quite a lot with that and just kind of ask myself, well, what is it and how do I find it? And as you say, you have to go on a massive learning curve and a huge journey of discovery, don't you, before you hit that, okay, it's about positive psychology, it's about thriving as a human, it's about becoming a better version of ourselves. And actually, for me, it's a lot grounded in kindness and compassion. It's like kindness is free, so give it away freely and you will actually have a better experience in life overall.
Yeah. But you know what it is too also? It's also the unlearning. I had to unlearn how I thought my life should look or feel as an attorney. And so that's also hard because sometimes we are so stuck on the path that's set out. It's like, okay, you're an attorney. You should be happy being an attorney. You pass a bar, you go, you practice 7 years, you become a partner at a law firm. And that is the easy way to just keep following the system. It's the unlearning. Like if you don't follow the path, what differently could you do? And so I think that's where the magic happens sometimes, in the unlearning of just how society says it should go or how life says it should go. And you get still and you figure out, okay, if I don't subscribe to the predestined or the predetermined path that whoever has pretty much bestowed on me, what else could my life look like?
Right. Yeah. You know what's sparking for me is that we've spoken before, Rachel and I, about taking a career pivot, and one's career journey isn't always going to be very vertical. my career journey has been extremely lateral. And each time I went into a new role or I had to take a pivot, I had to go in with a very specific mindset of curiosity and almost looking
Mhm.
at the experience like a learning lab. Like, what am I going to get from this? It may not be perfect, the situation may be toxic, but what can I get from it? But
Mhm.
that's not to say I don't ever feel imposter syndrome or I don't ever
Good.
doubt myself going in. So when you took this journey, did you have those moments and how did you get through it?
So I'll say one of the main things that I had to do in that season was tune out the noise.
Mm.
I remember when I
Mhm.
first said, "Oh, I am going to be a happiness coach." And it was something at that time, that was 2017, nobody was talking about being a happiness coach. Now you've heard it pop up more, but it was a completely uncharted territory. And so I remember nobody would necessarily say it to me, but they'd say it to my best friends, and my best friend would say, "Oh, wow, this person's like, that's crazy. What is a happiness coach?"
Yeah.
So I had to really um grown myself in the truth of what I knew my intuition and my gut had said to me, that this was the path. Because it's so easy to allow people to diminish our goals and our dreams, because ultimately they weren't the ones who got the download about what it is that you're supposed to be doing. So tuning out the noise was the number one thing. It was almost, and to this day, I see some of those people who I remembered who were the naysayers, and now they'll congratulate me. And it's interesting. I'm like, thank you so much. But in the back of my mind, I'm just like, wow, I'm so happy I had the courage to choose myself and to go on this journey that other people didn't necessarily understand. Because listen, our gifts make room for us. So
Mm.
my gift is not Cece's gifts, it's not Rachel's gift, it's my gift. And so I don't necessarily expect anybody else to understand my gift per se, but it was for me to really go inward and figure it out for myself. And listen, there were moments when I thought, what am I doing? And people would say to me, a happy lawyer is an oxymoron. That makes no sense.
Right.
It literally doesn't, right? But to me, it made all the sense in the world why I really wanted to pursue it. If lawyers have one of the number one suicide rates, one of the highest suicide rates of professionals, one of the highest rates of depression, I said, well, there it is, bingo. Because I
Mhm.
know what it is to be an attorney who is unfulfilled. And the best place and the most powerful space to preach, speak, and teach from is from personal experience and testimony. So I
Right.
could show up in rooms and really understand what they were going through when you walked across that stage and everybody thought, yes, you're a lawyer and you should feel great about it. And then you're looking on your family members with all these student loans telling them, oh, but I don't like it. And they think
Right.
you're ungrateful or whatever. So I had a personal experience and connection to these unfulfilled attorneys because I was her.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right. Right. You were solving a very clear problem and that became your niche.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And as a lawyer, like obviously you have a very kind of set out path, as you know, as you were talking about before, like you've got a very clear idea of what you're doing and when you're supposed to be doing it, and you almost get on that kind of treadmill of going along, going with the flow, and then along you've come along and said, no, we don't have to do that, you know, we can do
Yeah.
something different. And as you know, like doing something different is quite a lonely space because you're the exception to the norm, and people don't like
Mhm.
that. They're like, they don't understand it, like, oh, what's a happiness coach? And fair enough question, what is a happiness coach? But if you can then demonstrate it through being a happy lawyer and saying it doesn't have to be this way, then people are like, oh, okay, I get that now, it makes sense to me. It's super
Yeah.
Right. Right. And that takes courage to live differently
interesting.
because we're so programmed to live a certain way because society has set up certain norms and standards. And the moment you deviate from that, people are very quick to judge and go,
Mm.
I don't know about that, Rochelle. She's doing something weird and crazy over there. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure. But then when they see the impact, they're like, oh, okay, she's all right. That's my girl.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't
Which
understand it,
is
so they
Right.
which
just
is one of the reasons why I'm a big believer that when you have a dream, you have to be so sensitive about who you allow to have access to it. So when you're planting the seed, you have to make sure that you have gardeners around you who are able to nurture and tender that soil, because the wrong people can deter you from planting and nourishing that seed, right? Because yeah, everybody doesn't necessarily get the vision. And so when you're in a space where you're trying to disrupt a system, most people won't understand, and that's okay. But it is for you to be brave and courageous. And it is hard, of course it is, but that digging deep, and sometimes, ladies, the discomfort leaves you no choice. I'll tell you that. I was so uncomfortable waking up every day feeling like, oh my God, this cannot be the rest of my life, that I don't care who was saying I was crazy. I needed a change in my life. And sometimes life will make you that uncomfortable that you have no choice but to shift.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm really fascinated. What made you decide to, you know, label yourself as a happiness coach? What kind of led you to that?
So it's interesting. My mom had always said, the people closest to you really have a first bird's eye view on your gifts. For a long time, she kept saying to me, Rochelle, you need to go into life coaching. You pretty much do it for free. Your friends call you and you give them advice and you love it. This is your zone of genius. And I thought, well, I love to give them advice. Why would I get paid for this? You know, it just didn't make sense. I wasn't connecting the dots. And so once I saw that there was a school of positive psychology and then the messaging of the life coaching that my mom kept talking about, I literally went through the whole coaching certificate. And then I thought, okay, how will I set myself apart with something that's uniquely me? Happiness is, it comes naturally. I mean, you know, and I'm grateful because the science shows us, 50% of our genetics is based on, or happiness is based on our genetics, 50%. 40% is based on our daily habits and practices, and 10% is based on our life circumstances. And it just so happened, as I was studying the science of happiness, I realized that 40% of the things that they kept telling us that we needed to do, I did it naturally. And I also was predisposed genetically to being an optimist, because typically my family trends in the optimistic department, right? So it was just like the pairing of my personality and something that had already existed, coaching. And so I just fused the two, and here we are.
Love it. I love that.
Yeah, it's very inherent to who you are. It's almost like it came from your DNA. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now you're kind of doing this motivational speaking thing. Obviously, you're a top 100 speaker, female empowerment speakers, which is amazing. I mean, it's, you know, that's a great accolade to have. Like, not everybody can say that. And
Thank you.
you're obviously doing some amazing work in that space. Can you kind of talk about your journey as a, you know, motivational speaker and highlight some of the challenges you might have faced on that journey and how you've overcome them?
Yeah. So I would say how the speaking journey actually is very serendipitous. I ended up writing the book, and once I published the book, podcasts would reach out to me to ask me, okay, could you be a guest? So that was how I started informally speaking, right? Using my voice publicly. Then two friends and myself, we decided to do a woman summit called Woman Winning Now. And we did 4. And at the last one, a lady saw me speaking and she invited me to her company's employee retreat in Jamaica to speak. So said, so done. About 3 weeks before I was supposed to go, she confided in me that I was going to open for Steve Harvey. This was my first major speech ever. I was just like, what is this lady talking about? That is actually crazy. And so sometimes, you know how they say you have to say yes and do it afraid? And she said, can you do it? I said, well, absolutely. I prepared so hard for this speech. And so I went on stage. It was 15 minutes. They put that tape up on YouTube. And through that, serendipitously, I was connected with a speakers bureau, and they put me on their roster. 2019 October was when all of this happened. The pandemic came about, and it was just like the perfect storm. Companies wanted happiness, they wanted well-being, they wanted mental wellness, they wanted to talk about emotional health. And so it was the perfect storm, I'd say. So what are some of the challenges that I've faced through, you know what? I wouldn't even necessarily say that they're necessarily challenges per se, but what I do know is that corporations and companies, when people are pitching my services to them, they're wondering like, what is she going to come and talk about? Because happiness seems so like elusive. It seems very like fairy tale and butterflies. What is this lady going to come and talk about? So I would say it's packaging my message in a way that grounds it in science. And I had to figure out a way to make that make sense when I'm talking to an engineer. I can't just come and be like, okay, mindfulness, woohoo. I have to ground it in statistics. And so I think the challenge was allowing or framing my message in such a way that when people received it, it would be practical, that it would be grounded in science, and that it wouldn't just stay as butterfly and rainbows. And so I think the messaging and that connectivity piece was huge before I was able to truly deliver a message that resonated deeply with people.
Yeah. And landed so that they
And
can
landed.
understand it. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because I think, the whole kind of happiness and mindful, as you say, rainbows and fairies and lollipops. Yeah. And, and actually, there's obviously a lot of science and research around mindfulness and being present and grounded and all of those things that actually do lend itself to people having happier, more fulfilled lives, better careers, able to communicate better relationships. It filters out into so many different areas. And, like as a coach myself, obviously I understand that. But as you say, we've got to put it into context for people so that it does land, and then they can apply it to their lives, and they need to be able to walk away with something they can apply. So good on you. I love that. Yeah, that's good advice. I'm taking all of these notes.
Exactly. And that's actually a great segue, for wanting to be practical and give listeners something they can really do right now. So, I see you as a thought leader on happiness because you have a way of expertly blending well-being and positive psychology into your messaging. But people really want to know, how do you do this? So I think learning from experience is always the best teacher you can have. What is one strategy that you personally practice that our listeners can take away to enhance their happiness and overall life satisfaction?
So one thing that I would suggest that every single person listening do is to come up with a deliberate morning routine. And what I mean by that is when you open your eyes in the morning, as you wake up, you need to ground yourself in your energy. How do you feel? Do you feel happy? What does your body need? Are you thirsty? Do you feel dehydrated? Do you feel sluggish? Do you feel full of energy? What's happening is so many of us are waking up and immediately picking up our cell phones. And so you are allowing people's energy to infiltrate your energy. You don't even know how you feel before you start engaging with outside energy, right? And so what I would say is give yourself the gift of the first even 2 minutes every morning. And when you wake up, I want you to start with a gratitude practice. And why this is so important, and I know people hear that word all the time, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. But the reason behind this is, as human beings, we have on average 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day. 80% of those thoughts are negative. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive, which means you are thinking the same negative things over and over. If you pay attention to your thoughts throughout the day, you will realize you really do think about the same thing over and over and over. What the gratitude practice does is that from you open your eyes, I want you to find 3 new things that you're grateful for. Before your mind can go on that negative self-talk, that negativity loop, you are counteracting that. Gratitude is powerful. You think about the things that you have, because when you are focused on what you have, it is hard to complain and also be thankful. And why I say 3 new things is that it makes it something that you have to be mindfully practicing gratitude. It's not just every day, well, I'm grateful to wake up, but why are you grateful to wake up? And you end up stretching yourself so much that even in the negative things, you will find gratitude. Oh, I sat in traffic today. Oh, well, I'm grateful that I have a car. Oh,
Right.
I have to stand in a long line in the grocery store. I'm grateful that I have money to buy food. I
Food,
have food,
yeah.
right? So you're stretching yourself. You're definitely stretching yourself. But gratitude can absolutely transform your outlook on life. And I will say, start with a deliberate morning routine. Do not pick up your phone. Give yourself the gift of stillness for the first 2 minutes in the morning. You'll be surprised about how your happiness levels will rise. Try it for 21 days. Try it for 21 days straight. And then I want you to send me messages on how you start feeling. And what's powerful is if you are waking up next to somebody, ask them as well. Ask them how they're feeling and ask them what they're grateful for, because happiness shared is happiness multiplied. So both of you could be on that vibration of, let's just focus on our blessings. Let's focus on what we have, not on the problems. We all have problems. But if you just stop for a moment and really put it in perspective, you'll realize you have so much more than you even give yourself credit for.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. You know what's really interesting about that, Rochelle, is that maybe a week or two ago, I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, and there was a video about how someone had set a timer or had it written on a board somewhere every day, the phrase, something amazing will happen today. And they said,
Yes,
if you look at that every day and you spend a minute just reflecting on that, something amazing surely will happen. So I've started putting a calendar reminder in my phone.
yes,
So every day at 7:30, that calendar comes up and it says something amazing will happen today. And it's been a week. It hasn't been 21 days, but it has been a week. And every day I reflect on the day before and I'm like, oh, yeah, something amazing did happen yesterday. I got to see so and so. Or
exactly.
maybe I read something that really gave me energy. Or, my son went to Washington, D.C. and he's there presenting to at a national convention. So I am trying to program my brain to look for that. But I have to
Yes.
be honest, having the reminder on my phone is helpful because otherwise sometimes I will forget.
Yeah,
But
and
you
that,
have to set yourself up for success, which is you setting yourself up for success. It's not just going to come like easily, automatically. Happiness is a daily, deliberate practice. And so, just like how you could wake up and complain or wake up to an alarm clock, you could, as you did, you put it right there. Your alarm clock could literally say, choose to be happy today. You could set that on as your alarm, your voice saying, choose to be happy today. Wouldn't that be amazing?
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
and
That's a good
then
idea.
that activates your reticular activating system, which that in your brain, which then absolutely automatically goes and looks for amazing things that have happened. So people
Mhm.
kind of don't understand the deeper psychology of that deep subconscious work. But if you set
Yes.
yourself up in that way, then it's naturally going to happen because your brain is already geared up for it in that
Yes.
waking moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Good tip. Love that.
Thank you.
I'm obviously going to start doing that because, yeah, I wake up to birdsong on my alarm, but I do actually look at the phone. So I've got to stop doing that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
don't. I literally do not. Like I just wake up naturally, but on the days that I even do have to wake up with an alarm, I'll just turn it off and I just go into my moment, because you live your day and you win your day how you start your day. I
Yeah.
believe that how you start your day literally sets the tone for the rest of your entire day. And so if you wake up in a bad mood, all of a sudden everything just feels like off kilter. You
Yeah.
wake up, your energy is high, you're listening to music, you're looking on to something is amazing is going to happen today. It's what you said, the reticular activating system is going to start looking for things to be grateful for amazing things. It's just programming. Yeah, programming your mind.
Yeah. There's that quote, isn't there? Win the morning, win the day. So if you're winning the
Yes,
morning by starting with happiness, you're going to win the rest of the day. So yeah.
exactly.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. Thanks for sharing that. So leaders often hesitate to focus on happiness messaging because, it can appear impractical. And that's something that, because it's one of those soft skills, I suppose, isn't it? But like super important. What advice would you have for those who are listening in leadership roles about how they can effectively bring more messaging or happy messaging into their teams and workplaces and create those happier environments?
So I love to start with the statistics, because listen, as a leader, you are responsible for the bottom line, the deliverables. They want to see, where is the money going? Are we making money? Are we producing profits? What are our shareholders saying, right? So in those instances, I lead with the statistics. And so companies with happy employees outperform their competition by 20%.
Mm.
Engaged teams generate 21% more profit than disengaged teams. Employees who feel happy in the workplace are 65% more energetic than employees who don't, and they are 12% more productive. Employees who are happy take 10 times fewer sick days than unhappy employees.
Mm-hmm.
So just presenting those statistics alone, it gets their attention.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
you
They
want
speak
your
for
team to
themselves. Yeah.
engage. You want your team to
Mhm.
be productive. You want your teams to show up to work. Imagine if each person on your team takes 10 days of sick leave every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're taking 10 fewer days.
Mm.
So imagine. So that's, I would say that's a scientific case for happiness. But in the same breath, who doesn't want to go to an environment where they feel good, seen, valued?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I know I've been in environments where I've had an amazing boss, one where I feel safe to communicate, ask questions, not feel like I'm going to be retaliated against because I don't know something. And then the flip side, where you just feel a boss who is just micromanaging, doesn't really care about your well-being. You do the bare minimum. It's almost like you're showing up to just do the work, get your paycheck, and go home. You're not trying to do anything else. You're not going over and beyond. And your energy when you show up, it's just not going to be conducive to a productive work environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was one of the silver linings of the pandemic, is that mental health has been highlighted more than ever before. And so America now, especially, we're having a severe mental health crisis. People are feeling more isolated than ever before. And so finally, companies are realizing that we are whole people. You're an employee, but you're a human being first. And so I am all about holistic leadership. It's not just, the ROI or the deliverables, but how does that person feel? And so, Rachel, I'll tell you this, we spend more waking hours at work than any other activity besides sleeping. We spend a third of our life at work. On average, 90,000 hours. On every human being on average spends at least 90,000 hours at work. That is an inordinate amount of time to be doing an activity where you're miserable.
That you don't like, yeah.
Right.
It's all to all our benefits if our work environments were healthier, more safer, more peaceful. We would show up there and give more energy, more good feelings, good vibes, we would just attack our daily tasks with more vigor, which ultimately will improve outcomes and productivity, right? So that's my case when I make it. And for the most part, most CEOs are just like, oh, wow, we need you to come. Please.
Yeah.
Please save us.
Yeah.
Please come immediately.
It's like, oh, hang on, there's a real set of statistics there and a massive like Bing insight realization moment where it's like, I need to make sure my employees are happy because I'm going to get more out of them. They're going to be better people for it. And ultimately, obviously people want to know that they're making, they're doing good in life. And so if you are responsible for that in other people's lives, then that's good for you too. So yeah, win-win all around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think what you're sharing here, I think it goes to, I think leaders also have to model this, right? So it's not just about listeners who are an individual contributor and they're just going into work and going, oh my gosh, I'm coming into this work environment. But it takes these leaders to set that tone. And that's why being in leadership, you have to be careful and you have to be intentional around the kind of energy that you bring. Because whatever you bring is what other people are going to feed off of. And that's where that positive psychology, positive mindset really does make a difference in the kind of environment that you walk into.
Mm,
Exactly. Yeah, you have to lead by example. You couldn't have said it any better because
yeah.
listen, energy is contagious. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I like to say it for children, like children become what they see, but so do adults. If the leader in your organization shows up late, looks sloppy, misses deadlines, eventually the whole environment just shifts into that kind of,
Yeah.
disheveled feel, right? But if you have
Mm-hmm.
a leader who is very like punctual and disciplined and brings joy and cares about his employees and has empathy, it makes a difference. It literally shifts the environment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And
Totally.
I've worked
Absolutely.
for both. So I know firsthand.
Yeah.
I think we all have those stories of, the leaders that we want to model after and the leaders
Yes,
that we know things that you should not do at work.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, those leaders I like to call the energy vampires. I read that once in a book and I thought, wow, that's genius because they are
Yeah,
energy vampires.
yeah, yeah. They suck the air out of the room. They really
Right,
do.
right. Well, this has been amazing. I feel like we can talk to you forever, but would you mind sharing with our listeners how they could connect with you?
So I am available on LinkedIn. So since this is a very professional setting, or you can also follow me on Instagram. I am a little more sassy and spunky on Instagram. But listen,
Nice.
I bring my whole self to everything I do. So whether you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you are going to get authentic rural. That's it. You're going to get rural chair and you're going to get tips about happiness rooted in science. You may get carnival pictures because that's a big part of my joy as well. And so books that I'm reading because I love to read and I love to hear feedback because I learn so much from people who I come in contact with. I want to know their new techniques that they're doing, what I've spoken about that works for them. And yeah, I love to learn and meet new people. So please send me a message. I would love to meet you over email, LinkedIn, whatever format. It'll be great to hear from you. Yeah.
Great.
Love it.
What's your Instagram handle, just for everyone?
Oh, sorry. It's Rochelle Gapere. All my pages are my first and last name, Rochelle Gapere.
Perfect. Simple,
Perfect.
easy. All right.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Rochelle, for joining us today on the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast to share your story with our listeners. It's been absolutely joyous. It's my
Thank
morning
you.
here, so now I'm full of energy and happiness. So thank you for
Yay.
that.
Love it. Love it. Rochelle, again, we could not be, more grateful for your time and just all the sharing that you brought to us and giving us this energy of yours. It really does set the tone for continuing in that path. So truly, thank
Thank you
you.
for having me. And I'll come back anytime you want me to.
Oh, we'd love to
Awesome.
have you. Yeah.
Welcome
Amazing.
Thanks for having
anytime.
me, lady.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, Rochelle. Bye.
Thank you.